So let's talk about the thumb count, the two-handed variation. So the thumb count is essentially a way that allows you to count off cards one by one using two hands, as opposed to the pinky count, which does like the exact same thing, but with one hand. So yeah, I already taught the pinky count I think around a year ago. So if you don't know how to do a pinky count, I left the link to the video down in the comments below, so you can go ahead and check that out. But this move is very catered towards beginners. So yeah, you might be wondering why I'm teaching that, especially since I already taught the pinky count. But there's a couple of things I want to clear up, handling wise and history wise as well. And so this move has evolved quite a bit, so I'm I already have touches on it, and since the pinky count isn't really beginner friendly, I might as well just go into this and try and correct a few people who has done this move and who has seen this move online. So I might as well just go over it. So I believe that the first mention of this move in publication history, or whatever it's called, is actually from The Art of Magic, published back in 1909 by Thomas Nelson Downes, and it was actually unnamed. I believe that it was actually named in Expert Card Technique by Frederick Browie and Jean Ungar, which was published back in 1940, and they actually presented three methods. The Tarbell Course in Magic, published back in 1954, Lesson 73, Unique Card Effects by Harlan Tarbell, and because it was published back in 1954, that means it was actually not part of the original lessons by Harlan, that was written by Harlan Tarbell back in 1926 to 1929. So these are the neo, I guess that's how you would pronounce it, Tarbell Course in Magic courses, right? But what all these sources have in common is that they actually refer to this move as a bottom thumb count. And so clearly this move was actually meant to count cards from bottom to top rather than counting cards just specifically off the top. And so this sort of begs the question of, how did this move become what it is today, right? Because nowadays it's used to count cards off from the top to get a pinky break for a double lift or something, right? And so I'm actually not too sure, but I guess it must have been a natural evolution of, we can apply this to the top cards as well, right? If we can get a break on the bottom cards, clearly you can shift that upwards and get a break on the top cards. So I assume that's what sort of happened, but clearly there's been a couple of hiccups along the way, because some people are doing this on social media and they're flashing quite a bit, and so that's the main reason why I wanted to touch on it as well. So I'll just go over the basic mechanics of the move as per any of the other magic moves. You're gonna start off with a normal left hand dealer's grip. The very next thing that you're going to do is that you're going to approach the deck in a right hand bill grip. The main difference though is that your index is blocking the bill grip, right? So if you don't know what a bill grip is, your middle ring and pinky finger are going to be contacting the front short edge of the deck, while your thumb is contacting the back short edge of the deck, right? And because your index is blocking these fingers, you can either do you either do one of two things, and that is, you can either move your index off to the right top right corner of the deck, like so it just does this, or you can actually curl in your index like so. Personally, I think that curling in your index is too much of a jump, so I just scooch it off to the side, and that's that, right? So now you're in the right hand dealer's grip, bill grip rather. So the very next thing you're going to do is that you're going to apply pressure with your index. And the reason why you're applying pressure with the index is that this actually allows you to apply counter pressure for the very next step, which is you're actually going to lift off the back half of the deck, right? So I'm basically doing this, like so, right? But this can't happen without an anchor on top, right? So that's what my index acts as. It acts as counter pressure for my back lift, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. So I'm applying pressure with my index as my thumb is lifting everything upwards, like so, right? The very next thing you're going to do is that you're going to riffle off your thumb and like riffle off cards one by one. And the way that you're going to do that is that you're actually just going to move your thumb upwards, right? And you'll realize that as soon as I start moving my thumb upwards, cards start dropping, like start like dropping like off one by one, right? So I just need to move my thumb upwards, and that's that, right? And that's basically the mechanics. So when I reach the amount of cards that I want, and this is either by feel or by sight, right? So I can either feel that I got like nope, that's one card now, right? So I can either feel that I can get like 2 cards, or I can feel I can get 1. So around here is 2 cards. Okay, yeah, it is okay. Or I can see that I have 2 cards, right? Honestly, feeling is it's not that as hard as you would expect. So honestly, I would highly encourage you to start like just feeling the cards, right? But besides that, you just start riffling cards until you reach your desired amount, and yeah, that's basically like the move, right? But if you want to get a pinky break, which is what most people do with the move, is that now that you have this the amount of cards that you want to keep like a break underneath of, what you can do is that now, because you're in the left-hand dealer's grip, you just stick your pinky in between of the lifted off cards and the rest of the deck, and now your thumb can just release pressure, which causes these cards to flap back down. And because your pinky is over there, there's now like a space in between of these cards, as well as the rest of your deck, right? And because you don't want this corner to flash as well, you just want to contact it with the fat of your thumb, and this will cause it to anchor down in place, right? And so now my front edge is safe from flashing. This bottom left edge is also safe from flashing. It's only here where I'm keeping the break where there's a risk of flashing. But other than that, yeah, that's basically the main mechanics of the thumb count, right? And yeah. So there's actually a couple of problems regarding the thumb count, and it's mainly attributed to its original use, and I'll get into that right now. So one of the problems is that you can actually see the thumb count off cards like so, right, from the front. So yeah, the cards are like visibly bent too. You can actually see your thumb like moving upwards, and also you can see the cards being bent. So that's, I guess, two problems in one, I guess. And these 2 problems are mainly because of the original mechanic. The original mechanic, or the original use of the move, was that it was a bottom count, right? So the fact that it's a bottom count means that it looked like this originally, right? You wouldn't have to riffle off all the way to the top using the pad of your thumb, right? Like so. You wouldn't have to do this, but because we're applying the mechanics of the original move to the top, that's why we're getting this problem. That's why we're getting this visible thumb motion, and also this visible lift to the top cards, right? Because counting cards with the pad of your thumb makes a lot of sense for the bottom cards, right? Because you're over here and you're counting cards, right? It makes so much more sense because you're trying to feel for the bottom cards. But once you're over here, you're flashing way too much, and that is not a problem of the move, but rather of people applying the original mechanics to the current usage. So there's a couple of ways to actually fix this problem. one is actually to just straighten out your billow grip. So usually when you're doing a billow grip, you're actually off to the side like so, because this feels a lot gentler and feels a lot more open. But what you can do is that you can actually straighten out your billow grip. So rather than being off to the side like so, you can just, rotate it so then your hand is directly on top of the deck, right? So rather than doing this, now you're just shifting it upwards, right? So you're usually in diagonal, and now you're just directly on top. So what this means is that now your middle ring and pinky finger are hiding your thumb. So when I do the thumb count, there's much less of a chance for you to see what's going on behind versus if I did this and then I did the thumb count, right? So now this acts as a cover. The second thing is that you can actually bevel the deck backwards. This can either be the index just kicking the deck backwards like so, or it can be your middle ring and pinky finger just rocking the deck backwards, right? So it just does this, right? And the primary usage of this bevel is that it's actually easier to riffle off cards one by one, because now you have a step for each and every single card, versus if you just had this, you would need a gigantic bend for you to have access to a bevel, right? So if it was straight, I would need to bend the card so much until I have a bevel, right? Until I have a workable bevel. But if I just bevel the cards in advance, what this means now is that I can just riffle off cards one by one with no problem because of the bevel, right? And then the last part of my touches is that rather than using the fingertips for a thumb count on top, what you can do is that you can actually use this part. You actually use the part of the thumb that's closest to the palm, so around like over here, right? So if you bevel the cards over here, you actually use this part of the thumb to just lift off how many cards that you want. So for example, that's 2, and then yeah, that's it. I have my thumb count. And what this means is that now, because I'm actually lifting cards off with the part of my thumb closest to my palm, so I'm over here, I'm just lifting like one card over here. What this means now is that you don't see a bent thumb anymore, right? You don't see my thumb being bent slowly and surely, right? Now you just see this, whoop, and that's it. Now I have my break underneath of 2 cards, right? So again, it's the same exact thing. I have my thumb break, I just lift it up, I stick my pinky in there, and I release pressure, and then there's my pinky break. So just those 3 changes allows this move to look a lot better, because this was the original move, right? And they could clearly see the back cards being lifted. But now with this, I can just do this, and I have my thumb break, right? So this fixes these 3 touches, just allow the move to be done a lot faster, and also a lot more, I don't know, hidden, I guess, and a lot more efficiently, I guess. So now I'll just go briefly over T. Nelson Downs' handling. So his grip is largely the same, right? Not his grip, but his handling, his mechanics for the move are largely the same. The main difference is actually his grip. So he actually does it from this grip, right? So rather than having it in dealer's grip, he's actually clipping the deck in between of his index and his thumb, like so. And then the middle ring and pinky finger actually just curled underneath, like so. Right, and the way that he does the riffle is he's actually bending the front part of the deck upwards like so, and then his thumb goes to the back and bends it upwards as well. So the main difference mechanics wise is that he's actually just applying counter pressure with his with his left thumb. So that rule would usually go to our right index, but because his thumb is already there, his thumb acts as that. So by bending both halves of the deck upwards, this allows him to riffle off cards one by one and get the thumb count, right? So that's the main difference mechanics wise. But you might be wondering why he's actually holding it in this grip. That's probably because Thomas Nelson Downs, I believe, does parlor magic. So holding the deck at the fingertips to show fairness was probably very common practice back then, right? Because I think this is mainly a close-up thing. This is mainly a casino or a close-up kind of situation thing, right? So it makes sense why he would want to be like this, like, look, my hands are empty all the time, and then he goes over and does the thumb count, right? So, you know, you can apply this to however you want, but if you're doing parlor, I think that this grip makes a whole lot more sense than just doing this, right? Because now you're showing your hands empty, right? So I think that's the main reason behind why Thomas Nelson Downs had this grip rather than a standard dealer's grip, right? Because remember, close-up only became popular back in the 1920s, I believe, back in New York. So it makes sense why it's parlor style, okay? So I'd also like to go over an extra, and this extra is actually just one single method from the Expert Card Technique book. So this is basically, yeah, there's not really much that's different mechanics wise. So you're in a dealer's grip as per usual, but there's going to be a couple of changes. So your left thumb is actually going to go on top of the deck, and it's actually going to clip the top left corner of the deck alongside of your index over here. Right, so this is now clipping the deck. Next, your middle ring and pinky finger are actually just going to bunch up to the top of the deck, like so. They're just going to move upwards like so. And the main reason why they're moving is because my right hand is going to go over, not in a billet grip, but actually in a grip that's similar to a Hindu shuffle. So my thumb is going to go near the bottom left corner of the deck over here. And then my middle and ring finger are going to go on the right long edge of the deck, like so. And then my index is just going to be curled on top, right? So it is really similar to the Hindu shuffle grip. The next thing you're going to do is that your right index applies counter pressure, again, as your thumb lifts this corner upwards, which allows you to count off cards one by one, right? And so because my thumb is over here, this prevents the front edge from flashing. Because if my thumb wasn't there, this entire portion would flash, right? So my thumb is over there to keep this front edge from lifting off and then flashing. So now I can allow cards to riffle off one by one, and then there's no issue, right? It's the same thing as before, right? I'm just, just slowly rolling off my thumb to just count cards. And I just get my two cards, lift everything, stick my pinky in there, and then release pressure, right? So it's the same exact thing as the original thumb count. So if you're interested in the thumb count, there's actually a couple of resources that I would like to give. One is the Tarbell Course in Magic Volume 6 by Harlan Tarbell, Mr. Jennings Takes It Easy by Larry Jennings, written by Richard Kaufman, Expert Card Technique by G. Newgard and Frederick Browie, Card Control by Arthur Buckley, and basically anything that requires a thumb break on the top cards or a pinky break on the top few cards if you can't do a pinky break. So generally, yeah, there's a myriad of ways for you to apply this, and if you're planning on doing this on social media, yeah, make sure that you try and consider the 3 tips that I gave you. And if you don't remember what they are, just scroll back on the video. So yeah. So this is a relatively simple move, but every time I see this on social media, someone always flashes it, which is a shame, because I mean, it's not like anyone is losing anything by showing this move. I don't think so, at least. But you know, I want every move to be treated somewhat well, or you know, just tell the person to use a pinky count, because seeing this on social media every time is kind of miserable. So if you just did like a pinky count, so much better. But yeah, I think that's about it. There's not really much I can say about this besides it's a beginner move, but still, even though it's a beginner move, doesn't mean that, you know, it's a bad move. And also, you know, I want you guys to take a look at T. Nelson Downs' approach to it, because personally, I think this is a very interesting hand display, right? If you had this and then you just did the thumb count, right? I think that's very interesting, just having that. I personally wouldn't do that because I'm a close-up magician, but still, it's an interesting thing to consider. So I would encourage people to just revisit it now and then. So yeah, but besides that, yeah, stay healthy, stay safe, and see you guys on the next one.